God just radically healed me one day within 24 hours of getting prayed for. It was just an amazing thing to wake up. Scary at first because I walked to the kitchen. Then first I realized, wait, I just walked to the kitchen. And then I realized it didn't put my oxygen on. I feel that live streaming is a huge conversation to have with your leadership. If you're not doing it right now, the benefits are people that can't make it to your church, they can watch your service, right? If you are getting more of an audience online versus who's actually in the room, I really feel that you should stop streaming or figure out a way to put more focus on your local congregation. And a lot of it turned out to be, for me, was like, oh, I got to get back to actually worshiping, praying with my family daily as much as I can, getting back to worshiping with my family. And that kind of changed the game for me. Focus on your family, focus on your health. Mentally, spiritually, physical, and really just go on that journey.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching the Enhanced on the Strike podcast. My name is Justin Edmonds. I'm the host of this podcast. In today's episode, we interview Chad Vegas from Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, formerly of Bethel Church. He is one of the pioneers of cinematic live video. He loves storytelling. He loves everything video related. We talk about things from his personal to his professional transformations in his life. He didn't know this, he's from Hawaii, which is awesome. But yeah, he's had quite a journey and has a lot of insight on all things camera, broadcast, live streaming. So it was a really great honor to be able to have him back on the podcast and be able to interview him. So make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you put in the comments questions or things you liked or didn't like. And just make sure that you're hitting the notification bell. Without further ado, Chad Vegas interview. Why don't we start with your background, Chad? Like, where are you from? How did you get started in your industry? Like, where are you at currently? And kind of just give us the lay of the land.
Yeah. So originally from Hawaii. Take the long story. Hawaii. Moved to Las Vegas when I was in high school. Ended up getting started with video editing, and when they lost their video editor at our church there. And after that, moved forward to being the media director. And it was that time that I met my wife, and we got married. And she's like, "Hey, I feel like going to this school over at Bethel." And so we ended up packing up everything, moving over to Redding, California, and that's where I was for about 5.5 years, until I got a call during the lockdowns of COVID, and I got a call to come and guest direct as a contractor for for Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with Pastor Mike Todd. And man, the Lord just moved on my heart and my wife's heart. And we were, I think maybe the first session into recording or pre-recordings over at Transformation, God said, "Hey, this is your next home." So yeah, got about, I think 4 months later, we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I am the film and live video director for Transformation Church in Tulsa.
Man, that's pretty quick. So you were there for 5. You were at Bethel for 5. What was your role at Bethel? Was same kind of thing?
Yeah, I was the broadcast director over at Bethel.
Yeah, and then you've been at Transformation since 2020. Then does that sound?
Yeah,
right?
Since 2020. So I'm coming up on my 4th year on staff. Yeah.
Man, time flies. I remember when you did that move. That doesn't seem like that long ago.
I know, right? Yeah, I was just going down memory lane with a friend of mine, and I don't know if you guys remember, but we actually did that water floor thing where Pastor Mike was doing his sermon illustration in the water. And it feels like it was like 10 years ago, And I was like, man, that was like only 4.5 years ago. Like it was so, just time flies, man.
Time flies during COVID too.
Dude.
It just feels like a millennial ago.
COVID felt like it was never going to end.
Yeah.
You got hit with COVID really bad, didn't you?
Back in 2021 of December, I had pneumonia and had caught COVID, hospitalized on December 26th. Spent New Year's Eve in the hospital and was later released. 3 weeks later, rehospitalized, had a little relapse there. And after that, I basically took time off. I had to heal. I was on full-time oxygen, could barely walk. I was on a wheelchair whenever I'd go out and everything. And God just radically healed me one day within 24 hours of getting prayed for. It was just an amazing thing to wake up. Scary at first because I walked to the kitchen. Then first I realized, wait, I just walked to the kitchen. And then I realized it didn't put my oxygen on. I had one of those portable oxygen packs. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. What's going on? And so I go and grab the pulse oximeter and put it on one of my fingers and it says, hey, usually it's hanging around 60 to 65. And it was like 99. I'm like, no, there's no way my blood oxygen is 99. Maybe it's the finger. I'll put it on another finger. And so I ended up trying all my fingers and they're all 99, 99, 99, Then I go into, maybe it's the battery. Maybe the batteries are dead. Let me change the batteries, But man, yeah, God is good. By the time I got back to work, I'd say probably I'd been gone for about 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I knew that journey was long. I didn't realize it was that bad. It was the same year that I got COVID. I got hospitalized. I kind of it wasn't quite to the same extent. I was in the hospital for about 12 days, I think. Came home with oxygen. And yeah, it was really hard to walk, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I recovered pretty decently quick after that. I think I was only on oxygen for 2 or 3 weeks.
I don't think I even knew that.
Oh, yeah.
But really quick, that's also like a true tech guy, not trusting technology. Something's got to be wrong. Let me check the batteries.
Something's wrong. Yeah.
My fingers are wrong or the batteries are wrong. Yeah, something's wrong.
Right.
So, yeah, man, that was a tough time. But I'm glad you're through it. I'm glad we're all through it. I think for the most part, most people are through it now, which is great. And it's glad that, it's cool that you were able to take 8 months off essentially. And keep your position, and I'm assuming that the church supported you the whole time, and that's huge. So
it was really something that was such a blessing in the fact that they're basically like, hey, take the time off that you need. When you're ready to come back, we'll still have your position here. Yeah. And so it was really cool to be able to just have that that peace, and to be able to let me focus fully on my recovery. So.
Yeah.
And having a testimony.
Yeah. So, double whammy. Yeah. Let's go back to your time at Bethel, because I think that starts this journey of this question I'm about to ask, and then transitions you into the position you're in now. So when we talked originally, I don't even know how long ago that was. I want to say it was 4 years ago. It was right when you were in your transition from Bethel to Transformation when we talked.
Yeah.
And you said that you were the creator / pioneer of cinematic live film.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
No, yeah. I'm one of them. I would say that, there was a lot of people that were doing something like that. I think it's just being able to be at Bethel where it was a little bit more wider of an audience, But my buddies and I, Jesse Maitland and Drake Kelch, we just happened to take over. Drake just happened to take over production at the same time I took over broadcast, and we were kind of already doing a little bit of that kind of cinematic take, right? We have handheld cameras. We're putting movement to everything, even cameras that are on sticks. And so we got together and we really felt like, hey, what would it take to take this broadcast really to the next level? And we thought about, okay, how can we shoot differently? So handheld wise, right? Lots of whip pans for the faster, more energetic songs. The cutting's a little bit faster than normal. No crossfading anymore. And really kind of those cameras on sticks. What does that look like if we do slow pushes in when it's pivotal in a worship moment, right? Versus just trying to showcase what's happening by zooming out, not even zooming out on time, but just zooming out just for, to show it. And I like to say that traditional broadcast for me is a way of just, hey, this is what's happening.
Yes.
Whereas cinematic broadcast is a way of saying, hey, we want to bring you into this experience. Yeah. And so,
yeah, that was my next question. Like, what
yeah.
does that do to do for the viewer?
Yeah. So, a lot of different things. There's been studies too on it where, the way we frame up, right? We're framing it on the third, where we're really, looking at it more like doing an actual film, like a movie. Mm-hmm. And by that, we're helping translate that experience through the screen to the people at home. My goal has always been for people at home to feel what it's like in the room. Now, there's definitely those techniques that we use, cinema verite, the whip panning, handhelds, different ways of shooting, rack focusing, all of that. But one of the biggest part of it was I needed them to worship, right? And that's where that whole thing that the Lord showed me, worship first, capture second, came about, was because I was trying to find a way for, like, we were doing all of the things, right? Technically, but there was still something. I'm like, man, there's still something missing, right? And when the Lord showed me, like, hey, no, you can learn all of the things, you still have to learn all of the things, the tech, making sure, even over here, all of our volunteers that we use here, we give them the option to give them the manual for the camera and say, hey, study this manual, so that way they can learn about the camera. They know how to use it properly and, with the techniques that we show them. And then once that is done, they're able to it becomes second nature, right? It becomes like, riding a bike. So then it's like, okay, now I can actually focus on worshiping. And so that's how that whole thing kind of came about, where once I kind of broke through that wall, where I'm breaking the wall between production, what happens in production on a Sunday and in the room. Once we broke through that, it just felt different. Like we felt different just as a team. And then also, we started getting testimonies of, man, I really felt like I was a part of the service, Mm-hmm. So that's where all that, like, even the worship first, capture second part came, is like, I need you guys to worship. So that way the people at home can feel what's in the room. And, there's definitely techniques. We're putting them on a third, but when we're putting them on a third, we're making something I call looking room. So that way they're not looking to the edge of a screen. If you're watching it on TV, the lead's like on the left-hand side, but he's looking to the, yeah. to the left. Right. And so that's been actually studied. I can't remember who actually did the study, but it invokes, when you don't have people, on the right area, giving them looking room, giving people at home, what it does, it invokes like anxiety. It's really interesting. And so having this like subconsciously in your mind, it's the same thing with audio and lighting and video, right? I always say focus on audio first, then lighting, and then video.
Have you watched, sorry to interrupt, have you watched the show Mr. Robot?
No, not yet, no.
So
I think I saw like an episode, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's done. It's an older show from like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing is supposed to be like he's like super like anxiety driven and everything, and they film that where like he's always looking at the edge of the frame. So like he's always, like if the frame's here, he's always looking at that frame, right? Or if he's here, he's always looking at that frame. Yeah. And it's like my wife's like, I don't understand why are they filming it like this? And I'm like, they're trying to make you anxious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Reflection of the character.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really goes into that. Like, I talk to other churches when I'm, with the mentorship that I do and some, just consulting on the side. And a lot of times I'm like, hey, how's your broadcast audio mix? Oh, well, it's just from, out of the console, front of house console. And we use an aux to, or sub mixes and things. And if that's all you got, hey, that's great. But let's make that the best that we can make it, and within that, a lot of times, people, they'll tend to, if the audio is amazing and the video sucks, like if like the video is just not coming through, it's pixelated, things like that, then one of the biggest things I tell them is, hey, people are going to stick around But if the video is amazing and you have this amazing 4K quality video, but your mix and your audio isn't great, it's a subconscious thing in your mind that you're I'm gonna take a look and kind of look for somewhere else to I'm gonna flip to the next channel, right?
Yeah. I don't want to just like eat up all your time. Do you have anything, or do you want me to just keep going?
You're good. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I know. Talk to me about the decision making that you guys went through. Again, like I'm going to keep kind of going back to Bethel because I know that's where like a lot of your decisions kind of made, and then you kind of translated that over to the new job. So you guys were originally lighting for in the room, and then you guys decided to light for camera, or vice versa. You made a choice. Like you guys had a conversation about that. Can you talk about like what went into that decision, that thought process, and then what did you end up deciding?
Yeah, honestly, it was because we didn't have the best cameras, right? At the time, we actually had Sony F5s. I think they were Sony F5s back then. And so we had those cameras, but because we were using Blackmagic gear, the signal process, if we went to 2398 for that film look, right? It was 2398 PSF, and Blackmagic, they don't like PSF signals, so you couldn't read it. And so now they do, I believe. I think with all the Constellation stuff. But yeah, and so we had to figure out a way to, okay, we're going to move to Blackmagic Ursa Minis. We got a couple of them. We had a couple of them because we filmed a kids movie for our Bethel kids. And so because we had that and we wanted to go back into 2398, okay, let's do that. Our lens choices were, Canon lenses, EF lenses.
EF.
And going through everything, they started to already push even before I took over. They were already having that conversation of, okay, what does lighting look like? Do we need to go a little brighter in the room? Do we need, to make it look a little better on our sensors? And and the main choice was really just to open up as much as we can on our lenses. So our f-stops, I think most of it at that time we were like maxed out at f4, I think 4.5 or 4. Your 24 to 105s, that kind of a deal. 24 to 70s could open up to 2.8, but for a lot of it, we didn't do that on like cameras that are on sticks and stuff. It was more like for handhelds, and so handhelds it was a little easier, but it turned out to be that conversation of, hey, let's go ahead and let's try it with brighter lights. Okay, let's do that. Hey, we're going to give you more light. And I'm like, oh, perfect.
Did you guys deal with? I know that we have clients that deal with this a lot, and I've been through a lot of churches that deal with this as well, where like the front light is all conventional fixtures and all of the stage light is LED, and so like the color temperatures are just different, or like the house is a drastically different color. You got any like tricks, or like what would you suggest to people that are dealing with that? Like what do you color correct for, and what's your primary, and then what's secondary, and then what's I don't really care?
I would say go with your key lighting. If your key lighting are old fixtures, try to match everything to that. It's easier to change up and change temperatures of your LED lighting that you have. And I would go more towards, okay, so what's the actual temperature? Get a light meter, rent a light meter, any way you can get a light meter. And because they are pricey, man. But anyway, you can get a light meter, get in there, take the color temperature of your key lights, your main key lights, and build from there.
So jumping into transformation where you are now, you guys are 4K HDR. Can you talk to like why you guys went there?
One of the main reasons was we just wanted to look cool. I'm just kidding.
I knew it.
I was going to say like that's the reason why, right? Because you can.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Just because we can. Pastor Mike's vision has always been to be basically at the cutting edge. So, we've been blessed to have the resources to do so. And the conversation was basically, hey, 5 years from now, if I wanted to take an old sermon and kind of repackage it or push it out, if the Lord told me, hey, this sermon series, you need to write a book. can I make it still look, as good 5 years from now than it does now today? And so that was one of the main conversations that we had. And most of it actually happened while I was out sick. But, we were able to hook up with Diversified, and they caught the vision and was able to help us. Okay, what does it really look like to be 4K HDR? What does that mean? Okay, that means that, man, we're going to be able to have this amazing picture, and it's going to look great, and we won't have to worry so much about 5 years from now, but 10, honestly, right now, I'd say even 10 years from now, of kind of things looking dated. And it's been a journey for sure. It's taken us, I think up until recently, so 2.5 years. The control room's been up for about 2.5 years. And even in that time, I would always look back at our stuff and go, man, it's great. It's 4K, it's HDR, everything looks good, but I don't want it to look like sports. It still looks like it's too crispy for me. What is the missing factor in that? And
throw some mud on the lens.
Yeah, no. Well, I got a funny story about that too. So we were able to connect with Able Cine through Diversified. They came down. Able Cine basically showed us, hey, if you ran your cameras, or even your program feed through a LUT box, you can create that actual film look that you want. Mm-hmm. And so we did it like a whole week of testing, and what you see now is really everything goes through our LUT box. But within that, I noticed, I'm like, man, camera 7, those flares are beautiful. Like, what is happening? I never noticed it before we put the LUT on. And then I go, did you guys do something? And they go, no. And then so they look at the lens to see if something's up with it. And turns out the lens was dirty this whole time.
That's awesome.
But it gets this amazing lens flare from it. And I'm like, don't touch it. Don't clean it. Don't ever clean it. So, yeah.
Put another filter on top of it.
Yeah,
put a clear filter on it so that it can't get any more dirty.
So it doesn't get, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So the next question I have kind of is a two-parter, because I know you guys, I saw Pastor Todd's video about the building you guys were buying to start moving, being able to record anything you guys ever need to, and kind of be this hub for Christian content being kind of moving forward. Where are you guys at in that process? And then with the thought process of that is how do you guys choose the gear that you do choose? Because there's a lot of cameras that do 4K HDR. There's lots of camera switching out there. What's kind of the criteria and the thought process that kind of goes into that as you guys are doing it for transformation and doing it for the production building?
Right now in the process, we decided to really just focus on our local congregation and focus on our local community. So we're basically doing everything that we can mainly from our arena. Okay. So that's recording albums, all of that stuff is all done within the arena. Aside from a few music videos where we'll go on location to places, but the biggest thing within the decision of choosing cameras was that we wanted it to be dual purpose. We had resources, but still on a budget, and so we wanted it to be dual purpose. So the conversation really revolved around, okay, so we can do 4K HDR with Sony cameras, with all these other cameras. But the picking was basically almost a shootout a little bit, bringing different cameras, test it out. Does it work for us? And then at the same time, going over to different camera manufacturers, and testing it out in-house there, where they have a more controlled environment, and then bringing it out, to our side to see what it looks like in our uncontrolled environment, where everything changes all the time. Yeah. And so we found that being able to go with Sony for us, it was easier because we didn't have to chip the cameras a lot. When we were over with our, the Varicams, we had to, because of our environment and how everything changes, lighting changes all the time. We'd have to chip almost every other week. sometimes even every Sunday, and now it's a lot easier for us because it holds on to its information better. Color science for us worked out really well. It's a little different now just because everything that we do is all in S-Log Cine 3 and it runs through the LUT. So technically, we make our own color now. So but the process was really, how can we dual purpose this? Okay, could we take these cameras that we're doing for live broadcast? Can we use it as a film camera for doing our music videos? Okay, those probably could work, but coming back in, it'd be a lot harder to reset settings and things like that for broadcast. Okay, what about this camera? And so that's why we decided on not only just Sony cameras, but the entire family of Sony cameras. So that way, one, it matched across the board all the way. And two, it was, our cam ops, instead of having to learn two different types of cameras, they can learn just one right now. And they can go through and they know each menu option, each thing that needs to be either reset or changed for whatever particular environment we're in.
No, that's great. Sorry, you were about to say
I was
something.
going to say, people that might not know what chipping is like white balancing, color balancing the cameras, like resetting them.
Yeah.
Aiming them at a standard chart. So.
Yeah. Chroma Dumont.
Color card. Oh, my color card's
Yeah,
not in
which
here.
is very interesting because those, wow, they're expensive. And they only have a 2-year shelf life.
Yeah.
Which is also crazy because after 2 years, I guess it just degrades, the color degrades on it and stuff. And so every 2 years, you'd have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah. X-Ray is right here in Grand Rapids where we're filming this right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah. It's over by the airport.
That's cool.
I've only lived here 5 years, folks.
It's okay.
I'm learning these things.
It's all right. No worries. I mean, I'm sure there are other places too. It's just we have like a lot of X-Ray like factories here. I'm sure they do like a million
cool.
different things. Let's talk about live streaming. When would you tell a church to live stream and not to live stream?
Or what are some of your opinions?
Or what are your opinions on live streaming in general? Like not just the big churches, but for the little guys.
No, I think I feel that live streaming is a huge conversation to have with your leadership. If you're not doing it right now, the benefits are people that can't make it to your church, they can watch your service, right? People that that they, for whatever reason, whatever they're going through. Yeah, they're shopping. And I would say even one of the pros is I've seen actually in most churches upticks in giving. The cons of it is if you can't do it. It's funny. I just had this conversation with on a call earlier this week, and we were talking about part of it is that you don't want to go into it if you feel like you don't have the correct knowledge or staff to help you do so. And just because you can put up an iPhone and stream it, again, it goes back to iPhone audio, right? It just, you never know where you have the iPhone you're streaming at, and then there's, people talking behind the iPhone, during the sermon. And so you can hear that more than the actual preacher.
I've definitely seen that. It's awesome.
Singing.
So, cons for me are more on the side of not necessarily technology wise, because I mean, a lot of stuff now are filmed on iPhone,
Yeah.
but it's just more on, do you have the right person to handle that? Can they take on that? Because a lot of times, it's a one-man band back there in production. The sound guy does lights, the sound guy does, video, or the, media director, whatever, the creative director. And so can you do that in health, really, without overloading that person? And at the same time, are you able, even thinking through it, it's like, am I able to get volunteers? Am I, to help? And so there's a lot of, you have to find that balance, but a lot of it really is talking with leadership, even down to our cinematic, style that we started to do more of at Bethel was back and forth between our leadership and, hey, that was a little bit too much energy or movement. Okay, let's dial it back, and so just constant communication with them and finding out like, I would like to stream our services, even though we're not streaming right now. What do you think about that? And, you can also show them some examples. I would now, if you're not streaming at all and you're a smaller church, medium church, honestly, any church, I would not show them examples of Bethel, of transformation, elevation,
We could
all
totally
that stuff.
be this. It'll only take $500,000.
Yeah. I think they're using black magic cameras.
Yeah, no, totally. But, because a lot of times they'll show them that. And, even as a pastor looking back at it, it would be like, oh man, that's like, I would assume that the pastor would be, oh yeah, we can't afford that right now. I can barely afford my own salary, right? That kind of a feel, right? So find churches that are local, find churches that are the same size as yours, see what they're doing. A lot of them are on YouTube and show examples like, hey, we can actually kind of do something similar to this. And so, yeah, I hope that's answering the question.
Yeah, no, totally. So you're a consultant too, and so I wonder if this question like falls in that level as well. So we have clients that are live streaming, but they haven't really super invested in it. It's more of like we just need to be online type thing. Yep. And then we go and like look at view counts and stuff, and they're like some of them are like through the roof, like significantly more than what I would anticipate.
Or even more than in person.
Yeah, or even more than like significantly more than in person. Yeah. So my question to you would be, at what point would you consult and tell someone, man, you really need to invest in like actually putting money behind this because it warrants it because of this, that, or the other thing?
Man, that's a hard one. I really feel like if you are getting more of an audience online versus who's actually in the room, I really feel that you should stop streaming or figure out a way to put more focus on your local congregation. Because that's just a weird off balance for me. Like, okay, yeah, it's great, but also is it because people are disconnecting, disconnecting from the actual local church? They feel like, oh, there's this option that's awesome, that's great. I'm just gonna do this, and I'll call that my home church, But I would actually proceed on the side of caution of, okay, really asking that question: why are we getting more viewership online than in the room? Actual people in the room, and then try to figure that out. To be quite honest, it's almost the same thing we had to do when we reopened up, a transformation. Of like, hey, we're getting huge audiences. At the time, we were getting an average of 45 to 55,000 people watching online. And so we're doing that, and we have half our sanctuary filled up. It's like, whoa, what's happening? What's that disconnect? And we realized we were doing so much for the online community that was the focus. Even when we reopened up, like, a lot of it was geared to the online community. So we really had to kind of step back and go, oh yeah, we have to figure out how we're going to reach our actual local community here, how we're going to reach our home, our home people. So I would definitely look into that. Now, if it's close and it's matching up, I would say, again, kind of going back to that audio thing, like make sure that your audio is great, and then start thinking about, okay, cameras, it's easier when your cameras are all of the same family, for sure. But a lot of times it can't happen, right? Best bang for your buck is still black magic cameras. So, go all in on black magic. And, but if that can't happen, that's where, more things like you have to think about, okay, how do I color correct, all two Sony cameras, a Panasonic, and a black magic,
not possible,
studio camera, right? And so that's good. And so, like, from there, that's when you do the practical stuff of, having each camera has different sensors, different color science that, they feel like it's the right color space and color science for them. So going into that whole, basically that deep dive into that rabbit hole of, okay, I got to match to this. What's the best way I can kind of go even across the board? And then to be quite honest, you got to be okay with it. Not looking too hot when you first start, it's a journey. Even with what we're doing here at Transformation, I was talking about it earlier. Like it took us 2.5 years to get to a spot where we're like, now we're looking at our broadcast, go, okay, that's pretty close to where we want it,
No, that's great.
One of the things we often talk about on this podcast is training and how to invest, but then also the priority. You mentioned earlier about literally giving them the manual, your volunteers, the manual for the camera. What else are you guys doing? And then I guess also too, how are you guys setting your culture that you might even expect them to read the manual? Because I could see a lot of volunteers be like, I ain't
reading this thing.
I don't read it all. I got work to do. I got to read to the kids. How do you make that switch to be like, no, we actually need you to do that and other things as well? Walk us through your volunteer training if you can.
We do it a little bit. I don't know if it's different. I just never. So back at Bethel, I had all staff cam ops. They were all staff. I had about 12 total, I think. So coming to Transformation, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna have to utilize volunteers." I'm like, how do I do that? I'm like,
no, that's definitely a treat to have 12 staff volunteer camera ops.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a learning curve for me because we did take on maybe 4 throughout the year volunteers, students that were there, but there wasn't a lot that I had to do because our staff cam ops basically helped train him, right? So for us it's the shadow system, and we have team captains. So each section, audio has their a few team captains. In the control room are my TDs, my directors, assistant directors, lyrics, all that. They have their own team captains. Same with cam ops, jib and handheld and cam ops that are on sticks. So they all have their own little team captains. And then I and the Tyler, who came with me from Bethel, and our production director, Keith, and we basically train the captains and show them basically, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is how we want it to look. Show them the practical side of, the cameras. This is how it works. This is what you do when you have this issue, that kind of a feel for it. Usually what we're kind of landing on, it takes about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks total for an actual, a full, training program.
Yep.
But one of the biggest things for us is we tell them, hey, guys, we're pouring into you guys. We're doing this, not just the captains, but all of the volunteers. This is a viable career. We can train you for free. We're training you for free.
Yeah.
And this can be turned into an actual career. 2 of our handheld cam ops, they barely touched a camera. Within about a year and a half, they were on tour with Kirk Franklin in Maverick City. So it's one of those things where, those are the fruits on that side of hey, if you can put in some time to learn this can be a career for you. Especially having a, really state-of-the-art broadcast control room and cameras. It's something that it's easier for us to really train. But yeah, and we asked them for a commitment, hey, can you commit to so many Sundays? And within that commitment, these are the things that we're looking for. Yeah.
I love the captains thing.
Yeah, I do too.
It's a great way to multiply. It takes some organization, but it can be super fruitful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Those captains volunteers or staff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are those captains volunteers or are they staff?
They are all volunteers. Yeah. The only staff member. Yeah. On Sunday, the only staff member inside of the control room, on a full-time basis, is myself. We have some incredible volunteer leads that are also they're also volunteers, but they help us like coordinate the actual like scheduling of everybody, and then they train the captains on how to schedule people through planning center. And so it's really cool to be able to, it helps us focus on really just training. Like on Sundays when I'm not directing, I'm just on comms talking to the director that I'm training and saying, hey, this is why we have to cut away right now, or make sure you get this shot. So it's freed me up to really help, like what you said earlier, help multiply and really train the masses. I think last I checked, we're totaling at around 65 ish volunteers.
Which is not like, honestly, that's not crazy.
That's still a lot.
Right.
I mean, yeah, some churches will be like, whoa, that was a lot. But like,
For a church that size.
yeah, for bigger churches, yeah, we'll have bigger teams. And also when you got a lot more cameras, you're getting more people. But
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing one of the production guys.
it's not 200.
Yeah, I remember hearing one of the production guys years ago at Gateway talk about, like, because there was someone had posted about, like, yeah, well, I got $200,000, and he's like, yeah, but he's like, you have to understand that, like, we're a church of 30,000 people. Like, our $2 million budget, for for all of our departments, would be absurd for a church of 3,500 people, right? Yeah. They're probably $200,000 budget, right? And 350 people are probably a $2,000 budget, right? Yeah. And so he's like, you just have to think of it that way. So yeah, it's the same kind of thought process.
It's all. I mean, a lot of times I tell people it's scaling.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we're just we're doing a lot of the same things. We're just at a different scale. So
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you guys deal with the spiritual health of your guys' team? Making sure people don't give too much and pull away from actually being a part of the community.
One of the biggest things that I feel like has been a benefit of me getting sick was really learning how to slow down. While I was being the supportive husband of actually, doing working hard so that I can bring in the finances and make sure that my house is good and all of this stuff, I would realize that I would not shut off work when I got home, that I would do it unhealthily where, I'm spending time with my son, we're playing games together, but as he's playing the video game, I'm on my phone doing work, right? So that completely shifted for me, where I realized, through therapy, when I was recovering and all that stuff, like, oh man, I really wasn't doing well. And so the Lord took me on a journey of, hey, how do I be healthy? How do I do this? And a lot of it turned out to be, for me, was like, oh, I got to get back to actually worshiping, praying with my family daily as much as I can, getting back to worshiping with my family. And that kind of changed the game for me. And so coming back, it was really one of those things where, as we're talking with the captains, as we're talking with our volunteers, is really sharing my heart and why we're doing the things we do. And also at the same time, doing stuff like community nights where we're just hanging out, we're getting together to hang out, to play games. I think the last one we had, it's a bummer I couldn't make it, but they did a full Nerf gun war in the arena. And so, so things like that, and going into worship nights, having a worship night, once, twice a month, getting them to come in and just really worship, and not even focused on like anything in particular, but just come, rest in the Lord. And, God works through that, and he'll highlight something that somebody wants to say and talk about or pray about. That's been two of the biggest things that I've noticed that is, we're getting back to that. We kind of got away for a little bit, but, you can feel it now, if that makes sense, right? Like you can feel like, it's almost like with my wife and I, right? If I'm not really pouring out to her, or if I'm not worshiping myself, or, spending time with the Lord, like you can kind of feel that, getting a little distant, or if I'm going into full work mode, there's times when I'm, I don't get it right all the time. So there's times when I'm kind of into that work mode. When I come home, my phone, it's not on its focus mode for home, right? So I'm still still trying to send out some texts, and my wife would be like, "Hey, come back to me, my love." I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, let me put this away." So it's the same thing with the team. You can feel that, like, oh, we're kind of feeling a little disconnected, and a lot of it really is kind of going back to what I was talking about with worshiping first, is they have to trust me as their director, and essentially really like as a pastor. I've learned that I had to kind of shift gears from really the leadership to more pastoral. And so being able to pastor them through things, talk to them, be there for them as much as I can, within that, and them knowing your heart, it's a lot easier. I think we did something, I think it was like our last album Sunday. Yeah, the last album Sunday, there was some sort of a comment I saw on our YouTube thing, and they're like, or no, it was on something I posted. And they're like, well, I don't know if, how does the team even know what you want? You're just yelling the same number twice, because a lot of, I don't do it traditionally.
Six.
Yeah. I'm not a traditional, like coming to one, take one, every once in a while, if I wanted to do it on like a certain beat or thing, then I'll say, and two, that kind of a deal. But so a lot of it came back though to me. It's like, if they know your heart and trust you, and you trust them to do what they do on that camera, and it works out, that takes time. It takes practice, the practical part, right? Practice. But really, realistically, it takes community. It takes time spent with them. They have to know your heart. They have to know the why. We also throw in like testimonies every once in a while that I find online, and I'll send it to the team and send it like, hey guys, this is the tangible difference that you're making by being here today. I never, one of the things, and I know they get tired of me saying it all the time, but it's like, I tell them, I will never discount your yes. I have to be here because I'm on staff. You're making a sacrifice to be here. There's times when my jib-op, his car gets a flat tire on the way to service that morning, so he's late. But he still shows up, right? A single mom that we used to have on the team has to get all of her 3 kids ready, so she can't make it to the run through. All of these things, and it's like, man, that's a sacrifice. Like, and who am I to one, tell you, no, I'm sorry, you got to be here. You got to try your best to be here, right? And then 2, you're making this sacrifice so that you can help us broadcast this to the world, right? And so it's one of those things. Never forget that their yes really, really means something, and it is a sacrifice sometimes. Coming off of work at 5:00, but having to make it for the broadcast at 6, right? So it's things like that where I'm constantly just letting them know, hey, I love you. You're part of this family. Thank you for your yes. And we can't do any of it really without you guys. In the impact that we have around the world, it's really because of you guys. So,
and you said it so well there earlier as well. Like, if you are leading volunteers, shepherding, you are pastoring them. Like, you need to be aware that you are their pastor. There are other pastors on Edge Church, but you are also one of their pastors.
Yeah, that was the biggest, one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn for myself. Was I was coming at it from a leadership, like, oh, I'm the leader, so and I'm not discounting that. So
no.
Tons of leadership books, tons of leadership podcasts and things that I listen to a lot. But I had to make that shift in my mind. Like, oh yeah, I need to pastor them. Like, I need to be that person.
Yeah. There's that spiritual component instead of just us getting the broadcast as a group.
Right.
You're shepherding and responsible for their spiritual walk at some level. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the questions we had. I wanted to give you the opportunity, and if you don't have anything, that's fine. If there's anything you wanted to like share or just like put out there for our listeners to know, if not, that's fine. We can just wrap up. But I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, what's been on my heart lately, has been team culture, and we just talk about a lot of it, and what I've been doing here. And, my heart posture had to really change to that pastoral aspect. But I think a lot of it really was on me to change, right? So how did that happen? I had to learn that, oh, yeah, I'll go to therapy someday. Yeah, I probably need it, but someday I'll go, And God really sat me down by getting me sick where I couldn't go anywhere. And having a great mentor where he said, hey, awesome, the Lord healed you physically, and let's get your mental health in order. And I'm like, oh, okay, what does that look like, And so being able to go to therapy, getting EMDR therapy, and really focusing and changing wow, that sounded bad. Changing my...
Shifting your
little
mentality.
slip there, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm sorry. There's a clip of Stephen Furtick that's hilarious. He had like an Apple TV up on stage one time where he was like supposed to be like texting the Apostle Paul, and it like auto corrected to like a swear, and he's like, "Not my phone, not my phone."
Yeah, that's so great. I promise this isn't my phone. Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to learn how to shift into a mode of, okay, I need to focus on myself.
Yeah.
And what is the healthiest person that I can be for myself, mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, it's like the song, coming back to the heart of worship. Growing up and all throughout my life, I was a musician until I started, the Lord, for whatever reason, put me as a director for video. And it's not something I had a dream of doing, and a worship. So I was a worship leader and a drummer. And so I had to go back to that. I had to go back to really leading worship to myself and to my family. And then focusing on my physical health. I got healed and I'm like, okay, what's next? I'm like, I don't want to be at this spot again. I don't want to be putting my wife, my son through this. Mm-hmm. And so I just went on a health journey. I started, getting in there, getting to the gym. And I was having a tough time. And then one of the guys that was kind of helping coaching me, he said, you ever get up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym? I go, no, why would I? Like, what? What's wrong with you? He goes, I want to challenge you. Take a week and do it. And to be honest, it changed my life forever. Like, I've noticed that now, like I probably work out 5 days a week, and I try to get there at 5 a.m. One, because when you get in a little later, it's just a weird gym crowd. Gym people are weird sometimes. But two, I found that is literally my time with the Lord. That's my me time. That's the time I get to really converse with Him, pray through it. It's funny, and it's funny because it's like I saw a video online on Instagram once where the guy's like, yeah, this is me at the gym. He's like lifting weights, right? And then they cut to what he's listening to, and it's oceans. And I go, wow, that's sometimes, some days, that's literally what it is,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had to, so physical, mental, spiritual health, and I really had to focus on that. And so I just want to encourage anybody, especially in production, a lot of it and what we do, can be mentally taxing, physically, especially, load in, load outs, or even just changing stuff around the sanctuary. Yep. Focus on your family, focus on your health, mentally, spiritually, physical, and really just go on that journey. The Lord has shown me, man, so much things that I look back on and I'm like, man, I was a real a-hole. I shouldn't have said that to that person, before I got sick. And then it's like, okay, Lord, thank you. Thank you, God. I know it was hard for my family. It was hard for me, but man, thank you for getting me sick, or for, not getting me sick, but, bringing me through that journey. Yeah. So that's the one thing that my heart is on. When you do that, your team will shift as well. Like you'll feel it within your team.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one, like every time we don't do this all the time anymore, but there's a lot of times when I'm bringing the video team in before the service, after we do a run through, and just giving some final instructions like, hey, we're going to do this. Things change now. Pastor Mike's going to do an illustration on stage left instead of stage right, that kind of a thing, But I always kind of take it back to what the Lord was showing me for that week. I'm almost praying into that. Like, Lord, what are you showing me? Not just for the team, but really just, in general, Lord, what's on your heart? And so being able to take care of myself has allowed me to really help pastor my team. Yeah.
That's great. Well, Chad, we thank you so much for coming on, taking the time. It really does mean the world to us.
Absolutely.
Where can people connect with you if they've got more questions or want you to speak or consult or whatever? All the the 9 feathers in your hat.
Yeah. Honestly, the fastest and easiest way is Instagram. So Instagram, Chad Vegas, and the other way would be just chadvegas.com, just through my website. But 9 times out of 10, I'm answering quicker on Instagram.
It's because you get the alert. Bing.
Yeah. No, I actually have my alerts off now.
Yeah, so do I. I hate getting alerts.
I turned it back on a couple of months ago, and I'm like, ooh, that's why I turned it off. Yeah. Just going to shut that down.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks so much for joining us again. Like I said, we do really appreciate it. So hopefully you'll be able to come back on sometime.
Yeah, would love to. Yeah, it's an honor, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. I know that taking time to listen to or watch an hour-long podcast is a lot to ask in today's day and age. So we really do appreciate it. So make sure you comment down below what was your favorite part, what really stood out to you, what were your thoughts on some of his thoughts. The guy did say that he thinks that you shouldn't be live streaming if you have more viewers online than you do inside the building. So I think that was pretty profound, and I kind of say I lean towards what he's saying. So it was really great to have him on. So Chad, thank you so much for coming on if you're watching this. And until next time, I'm Justin, and again, thank you so much, and make sure you subscribe.